What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. Today, I am super stoked to talk to Tyler Johnston. Has multiple kids, grandkid on the way. It's going to be a lot of fun having a conversation with you, Tyler. I'm really looking forward to it. If you can, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about you, your family, and your business.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks for having me, Adam. I really am glad to be on the podcast with you, and good to have a conversation and just talk about being a dad and having business stuff together. So my name's Tyler Johnston, as you mentioned. I am happily married for 31 years to the love of my life, Kelly. She's an amazing gal, and I married way up,
As you should.
as did most men. But I really hit it out of the park on that one. She's awesome. I have 3 children. A girl who is 29 years old and pregnant with our first grandbaby, married to an amazing guy. I have 2 sons, 28 and 26, almost 27. And my youngest is also married to a lovely gal, and they live here in Fort Collins. And so our family's here in Fort Collins, Colorado, largely, and we are spoiled to be here. My business is Vida HR and Vida Benefits. We do everything it takes to have employees, all the stuff that business owners don't like to mess with. HR, payroll, benefits, retirement, compliance, all those fun things. And so we take care of all those things for an employer so that they can focus on running and growing their business. We're a little different in that we provide experts to do that work for the client. So not just software, but software plus people doing work for that client. And so it's an exciting opportunity that we've developed. I love our team and company. We've been around since 92, the origins of the company, but we have rebranded about 6 years ago, actually, to Vida. Vida means life in Spanish, of course. And so we bring life to some things that are typically not very much fun, or the least favorite thing that a company owner or runner of a company does. They love being a plumber or being an architect or being a doctor or being whatever it is they do. That's why they started their companies. They didn't start their companies to spend a ton of time doing the things we have to do, but it's necessary and it has to be done well and has to be done right. I think what makes our company different is that we do the right thing by the client every time and without fail. And that's by God's grace. And that's with the help of a team who also is committed to the same thing. But we are not perfect, but we take responsibility for what's ours, and we fix things that need fixing fast. And we do everything we can to keep a client happy and out of harm's way. And so the result is we keep clients 12 and a half years on average. In our industry, the average is 2 years. So we've won all kinds of awards recently and everything like Colorado Companies to Watch and fastest growing Mercury 100 in Northern Colorado and best HR company in Colorado Springs for 4 years in a row and all these fun things. But it's really about the team. And my job really is to recruit and bring amazing people onto the team for us and then take really good care of them so that they can take really good care of the client. And so seems to really resonate with people. People don't want to be a number anymore. They want to be able to get answers quickly to the questions they have. And Colorado's the second most difficult state next to California now. We beat New York, sadly. But having employees in Colorado is one of the most difficult things in the country because we're number 2 with legislation and compliance requirements. So we take a lot of joy in what we do. We help Colorado companies and their owners succeed and take care of the employee as well. So it's a fun thing. How's that?
I'm not sure that beating New York is a title that I would want in that particular category. But I mean, hey, if that's...
I don't want to win, but here we are.
If that's part of your sales pitch, I mean, here we are. That's...
Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Labar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
One thing I would also say is that besides being a serial entrepreneur, I am an adventurer. So ski, mountain bike, fly fish, jump off everything. Like we're a very adventurous family. And so being outside is part of what makes me tick and keep going. So.
Yeah, we're very similar in that vein. No matter where we go, like we're pulling off on the side of the road to run through a creek with the kids or do something crazy, So it's a lot of fun. I love doing it. Has that been the case for you guys like forever? Like growing up, were your kids all that adventurous too when you were raising them too?
My dad was responsible for giving me the bug, and so we started skiing when I was real young. We lived in Utah at that point, so Snowbird and Alta and all the good skiing in Utah was there. And so he started me when I was like 6, and then we camped and we're outside all the time. That was the good times I had with my dad were outside. And so we moved to Colorado when we first married. I got here as quick as I could. Lived in 19 states before, but I knew where I was going to end up. And that was here. So soon we married, and our honeymoon ended, and we got here 2 days later. So we came straight to Colorado. And been here ever since. So 30 some years in Colorado is good. So yeah, the kids, they didn't have a choice.
Very good.
When they were 3, they got to go skiing with dad, and mom got a day by herself. And so I had 3 kids under 6 on the ski slope by myself because he was enjoying a little time off and I was having fun with the kids. And so, yeah, they didn't have a choice. They started when they were young, and we've had a great time doing it ever since. And they really took to it.
Yeah, I love that. It's not easy to do, but I was telling you that I was just on a call right before this with a guy that he's interested in having a 3rd kid, but he wasn't sure about the stress and adding to it and all the stuff. And I was like, dude, I'd have 7 if I could. Like, just have as many as you can. Don't stop. Just keep it going. And does it mean that life is going to suck less? No, like things are going to suck more probably in certain circumstances. It's going to be rough, but guess what? Like your lows are going to be lower, but your highs are going to be higher. Like you can't take back any of that stuff. Like, it's tough.
And 3 is no longer individuals. 3 and plus is a crew. And if they're close in age at all, then they play together, and our kids are super close still. And my boys run skateboard camps and surf camps. And, in their off time, and the whole family participates. So my daughter is up there cooking, and my wife runs the kitchen for, 150 kids to come and 20 staff and all that stuff. So having them close and having more than 2 means that you have a crew and they do stuff together, and they do it on their own, even without us. Like they're getting together and doing their own thing and having vacations together. And I think it's super rich. So you're right. When they're little and you're not sleeping much and it can suck more. But as soon as they reach like 4 years old, the youngest, now life is good for a long time.
It's like once you're out of that diaper phase, that's all you got to get through. Right. And for some reason, God only gave us a kid every 4 years. So we'd get out of diapers and feel comfortable, and then another kid would come. We get out of diapers and feel comfortable, and another kid would come. We're like, wait a minute, like we're really trying to have more kids in the middle of this time. Why could we, not do it? But
yeah, my wife was like, buddy, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to stay in that zone very long. So if we're doing this, let's get it done.
Yeah, let's get them all out of the way.
Let's get in the zone and then stay in the zone, and then we'll be out. But the third one, our youngest, who is a sweet, sweet man and he redeemed the whole child birthing experience for my wife. He was the easy one. First 2 were psycho as babies, but he was a surprise. And so, but a wonderful, wonderful surprise. We were in Youth with a Mission at that time. So we were traveling all over the planet. And we each had a child and a backpack, and we could go anywhere. And we said, hey, we're good. Boy and a girl, good to go. This man coverage will be good. So we went to see the doc, and the doc's like, yeah, I'll take care of you in a week. Come on back. I'm like, okay, great. We're driving home. She's like, wait, I'm feeling kind of funny. I'm like, what kind of funny? And there was Connor, and he's awesome. Life would not be the same without him. So I like to say we were smart to have 3, but it wasn't our plan. It was his for sure.
Yeah. God's plan is always better than ours. So that's fine. That's yeah. Anytime I plan something, it usually doesn't go as well, and there's a lot more stress involved. So, so you talked about living in 19 states. So was that growing up as a kid, or was that partially as an adult too? How did that work?
Partially as an adult too. So my folks split when I was 6, and they were living in Utah then. We lived in California before that, and Michigan. My dad's professorship growing in tenure and whatnot. So he moved around a couple times. We were in Salt Lake. They split when I was 6. And my mom moved around a bunch for different relationships, different jobs, different things with me. So single parent kid at that point and traveling all over the country. I was a few states, but then when I was 19, I became sales manager for a publishing company in the summers. So I was knocking on doors, selling books and Bibles door to door for 5 summers. And that would take me all over the place. And I was a young, unmarried, unattached guy. So they would send me to fix broken territories. Hey, they're sucking wind over there. Go really pitch in and help. And I would. And so if I didn't stay there longer than 3 months, I was just visiting. So if I stayed there longer than 3 months and actually had a mail address and everything else, then I lived there, right? I had my own apartment, then okay, I was living there. So they moved me all over the place and I was happy. As long as my college credits were transferring, I was good. Let's go have more adventure. And so that took me to a bunch of states too. Funny thing is, after all, and that's all parts of the country. So Southeast, Northeast, Northwest, Southwest, all and in the middle too. But funny thing was when we got married, Kelly was already involved in Youth with a Mission, which is an international missions organization. And so I got to meet the international director and he's like, wait a minute, you've been selling books door to door, working with college kids, and now you love Jesus. We need to talk. And so we moved to Colorado and there was a YWAM base being formed down in Southern Colorado then, and he wanted us to come help start it. So we did. We got into missions and then stayed in the same place. Crazy. We lived in Colorado ever after. We traveled to about 18 countries together, but we were based here and still live here. And so I kind of settled down once I got into missions, which is not normally
That's pretty much the opposite of what you would normally hear. Yeah. Yeah. I understand that.
But 19 states.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. You're keeping up with me. That's for sure. So I like to hear that. So,
well, you're military too. So that's saying something.
And I was a military brat, so bounced all over the place. I've been all over the world doing all sorts of stuff. So all 3 of our kids were born in different states, one of them in a different country. So, it's a lot of fun. But I want to go back to, you mentioned your parents splitting up at 6 years old. Tell me a little bit about what that was like for you. Obviously, you're old enough to remember, when they were both there. You're old enough to have, understand what was actually happening. So, talk to me a little bit about what it was like for you growing up, like before and after the split, and especially your father. How did that look for you as a young boy, looking at your dad as a potential role model?
Well, it was very colorful. Let's say my parents were both artists. My dad was the head professor at the University of Utah in the art department. And they were running from the church. They were running from their history. Both my grandparents were in church and sincere in their faith and so forth. But my parents this was in the 60s, early 60s, and they went the opposite direction. So not business, not, the normal white collar kind of climb the ladder, but do art and smoke a lot of pot and have a different lifestyle for sure. And so it was rough. My dad would help his college graduate students with their projects. In turn, they would come help him renovate this old train station we bought for like minimum wage and a meal. But the assumption was at the end of the workday, there would be a party. And on the weekend, that would go all weekend. And so I was exposed to a lot of stuff a kid shouldn't be, right? Lots of, just lots of stuff that wasn't great. And as you can imagine, in a lifestyle like that, they weren't faithful to each other, and so the marriage ended, and it was rough. I was kind of, as a kid, you don't know how to translate that stuff or filter it, or you don't know how to take all that stuff in. So, strange thing was, my dad had been a really giving guy. He had really been interested in mentoring other people and really giving to other people. Without faith as the basis for it, just naturally. But then he got burned by a few of those folks early on. And so he made a right turn, Clyde, and decided he was going to get his instead. If he was going to give to people and they weren't going to return the love or the appreciation or whatever, then he was just going to get his. So he did. He became a very selfish person and slept with a bunch of his students. And, my mom and he had split as a result. And it was very tumultuous, yelling and screaming in the streets, and me as a kid trying to what's going on? So But he eventually made a choice, not too far after that, to marry a different gal and go down that whole lifestyle further. And so that meant me not around. So he chose for me not to be part of his life. And that was, I didn't understand all that then, just that my dad's not around. My dad's a very talented guy, entrepreneurial, created, like he did art projects for the Bass Brothers in New York and for all over the city of Utah, all the government buildings and stuff. He's got pieces in, and he really opened the art world in a closed place. Salt Lake was a closed place toward the arts, and he really opened it up and founded the help with the big art center that's there and raised all kinds of millions of dollars to help get it off the ground. He's a very talented person and a very hardworking person. So I get a lot of my hard work ethic from him. I saw him doing it and realized I could too. So I'm grateful for a lot of things, but he was also pretty absent in my life until right before he passed. And we had a reconciliation then and got to clear the air, and that was really good. Really grateful for that. I got to share my heart. I got to disclose and, discharge my heart and let him know he was good to go on without worrying about me, and that we could, I could forgive and et cetera. So we had a really nice, he was also in trouble. He had dementia that took him pretty quick, and he had a huge studio, like 8,000 square feet of every bender, brake, crane, welder, everything. And he had no idea what to do with it. His newer wife then had no idea. So me and my sons went and helped deal with all that. And I was the only one of his 7 children that did. And so, at the end of that, one quick aside, at the end of that, my sons pulled me aside, and because we drove to California from Colorado like 6 times, big gooseneck trailers, and just craziness. And my sons looked at me at the end and said, "Dad, you were a good son." And that was pretty meaningful to me. Like, okay, check, please. Okay, good.
All done. Feel good.
Sweet. Okay. That's all I needed. But anyway, so that was tough growing up. And I felt the lack of that for many, many years. And it drove me to be somebody to get, performance-based acceptance was a huge part of my coming up because of the lack of acceptance and approval I got from my dad. And so that really drove me unhealthily for a long time. And, but God is good. He put some key guys in my life as I grew up, as I was married and in Youth with a Mission and different things. He intersected some really quality men in my life who were able to speak a different way and really convinced me of my identity as one of the sons of Jesus, who's favored and loved and created on purpose with gifts and so forth. And so that's really kind of the core message of my life now, is my sonship and who I am, what place I have in the kingdom with Jesus. And it's not about what I do, it's about who I am. And I'm his favored kid. And that's a different perspective altogether.
Especially after not being the favored son of your dad, right? That's not a, it's, I think that's one of the hardest points for folks to truly, especially, young men who don't have a dad, to truly understand. You're supposed to look at God as a father, and you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, no, sure. I don't want to do that.
I've got a great example to lay next to that. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So, it's so difficult. So as you were growing up, you mentioned the, how did you say, performance-based acceptance, right? What did that look like for you? And when did you really start to notice the performance-based acceptance? Like you felt that that's what you needed. Was that something that was identified by you later as you looked back, or did you kind of feel it already as you were going through it?
So it was kind of gradual. When I was 17, I left for college. Never went back. I headed for college, then had a scholarship. And so I jumped into college, and my mom and stepdad, funny enough, they went into YWAM and left the country. So I was on my own. And I felt a real primal kind of cue, like, you got to get it. Like, you don't have a backstop. You need to go make this happen. And so I started with the sales company then. And first summer I did pretty well. Second summer I killed it. Third summer I just kept, amping up. And I found a place. I was gifted. I was good at that sort of thing. and communicating ideas and doing it in a way that was sort of service minded rather than torquing on people, but more, how can I help you with the needs you have? How can what I'm doing bring value to your life? And if it can, great. And if not, no problem. But let's have a talk. Anyway, so I found this niche of I'm good at this. I can do this. And I got praise for doing it. And then I got more praise for doing it well. And then I got more praise for helping other people do it. And then I started making a bunch of money as a young man. And so then I found myself working 90 hours a week and just, crushing it. And so, and I could find another gear all the time, which wasn't necessarily good for me. So I felt the initial kind of primal cue, and then the encouragement, and then the reinforcement of that. And I just kept leaning into it because this is a place I was. And, for a number of those years, I walked away from the Lord too. I was like, you know what? Why did my childhood happen? Why did my dad not around? I was angry, whatever. So I'm just going to do my own thing. And so I was just leaning into this thing that was feeding me and more and more and more. And it was taking more and more from me. And so I think eventually I realized I'm kind of a husk of a guy right now. I'm spent. I'm pretty cooked and I'm young. And it's also, there's a limit, you can really do well and still be very empty. And so then I realized that emptiness, right? And so I took a break from the sales company and I went to hang out with my mom, who is now back in California and on staff at the Vineyard in Anaheim when John Wimber was there. And so I went to spend a month. I took a month off. It was slow season. It was easy to do. So I took that time and rededicated my life to the Lord and met some really key guys there that really spoke into my life too. And they started in on this message. Hey, you're killing yourself. You work so hard, but that's not what defines you. What defines you is who you are. Now that you've dedicated your life to the Lord, now that you're His. And so they just started in on me. And then a couple of different mentors along the way, same. And then it was another layer of the onion and another layer of the onion. And still now it's my Achilles heel, right? When I find myself insecure or tired or something, I can find a new gear and work harder and crush some business deal or something. But I try not to do that. That's not what I'm about. And so filling myself with good information to remind myself is super helpful. Having guys around me who help hold me accountable, super helpful. And then just redefining what the goals are, why the goals are there. The goal, we're talking about being biz dads. We're talking about being in business and having a family. And man, you only get one time with your family. You don't get it do over. You don't get to repeat it. And so redefining those goals and realizing for myself, I want them to have the same experience that I do. I want them to know the same measure of value and the same fulfillment in a rich relationship with the Lord and a rich relationship with the work that He gives me to do, because work is part of it. And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And I think we're supposed to co-create with the Lord. John Mark Comer talks about Garden City and those books. I really resonate with that stuff. God has built me with purpose. And so I get to, when it's good, when I'm hunkered down in Him and I'm working, man, it's a good thing. And crazy things happen, way more than I could ever plan. But so I want them to have that same, I'm valued because first of all, they belong to me. My kids are mine. They'll never change no matter what. More importantly, they belong to Him because they all love Jesus too, which is, and so they belong to Him. And so, but then how does all that work with what your vocation is and how you work and what you put your heart and mind into? And so it's a cool thing now. So it's been that was when I was 24, and I'm 57 now. So that's a 30-year journey, right? 33-year journey of that.
So right before you had kids, which I guess is a good timing to start doing that, right? Right before you become a dad. So that's good.
Yes. Get a little healing before you. You could have been really ugly, but He was gracious enough. And my wife, she's a woman of the Lord, man. She knows Jesus. And so had I not had that moment and that time first, we would have never connected, Actually, it's funny because I met her 2 weeks after I rededicated my life to the Lord. I didn't date her for a long time, but she was like, God's faithfulness was, hey, I've got stuff for you. And 2 weeks later, I met her. So anyway.
There's a couple of questions I want to go down. And I think it's easy for men as a whole to chase that success, right? I mean, women too, don't get me wrong. Women still want to chase success too, but men have a tendency to do that a bit more. Success in the business sense, to success in that number sense, success in that realm, and to feel like that reward is there, right? So you were chasing the performance reward because your dad didn't give you an identity in yourself or who you are, or in God, right? In whose you were, as you said. How did you start to apply that to provide your kids an identity beyond what happens here on this earth, but still have that drive and dedication to chase the things? Like, if you succeed or not, it doesn't change who you are or whose you are, but you still need to be driving for that. How did you kind of balance that in your conversations raising your kids?
Great question. Two things. One thing, when they were little tiny, the three of them were 3 years apart, right? Start to finish. And so when I would tuck them in every night, I would say this to them. I taught them this little phrase. So I would say, how much does daddy love you? And they would all say, past the moon and the stars. And I said, that's right. And if you go to school tomorrow, or you play with your friends tomorrow and you do well, you win the game, or you do well at school, does it get better? And they would say, no, daddy. And I would say, if you fail, does it get worse? And they would say, no, daddy. And I would say, why is that? And they would say, that's because we belong to you, daddy. And I was like,
love it.
Sorry.
No, it's quite all right.
Then as they became a little older, 10, 11 years old, I was like, you know how we have our little phrase that we say every night still? Well, I got that from God. So you belong to him, right? You can't change that. Once you have accepted him, which they had by then, you belong to him. You're in his family now. And you can't change it. It's like DNA. You don't get to choose who your dad or your siblings are. They are who they are. You are now in his family. So that's how I started that part. But then when they started having interests, they would watch me work hard. First of all, I think it's important that they see me working hard and putting my heart and labor into what I do. That's valuable. So they saw that. There was no question that dad works hard. And we renovated our house while we lived in it. And we helped other people in our church with their projects. And we worked hard and put our backs into it. And they came along. They saw that. So I thought that was important. But also, when they started having interests, then we fed those interests and we did them together. So my sons wanted a skateboard. Their youth pastor, this is like 11, 12 years old. Their youth pastor was a longboarder. He would, do these big 4-foot longboard, and he would cruise the streets in Southern Colorado in our little town. And they were like, oh, that's so cool. So we made longboards, and then we figured out how to make them better. And then we figured out how to sell them to all their friends. Their friends all wanted in. So then we made enough for everybody. I invested in the things that they had interest in, and they're doing those things now as adults. Like they know. So we ended up having a skateboard company with them. And so called Pure Longboards. And so they started their first company when they were, before they were teens. And they had the company for like 8 years. And they made them for a bunch of shops and stuff. They eventually shifted into shorter boards, the park boards and things like that, because one of their friends got hurt doing 50 miles an hour down the road on a skateboard. And I was like, What are we doing? I'm in the Suburban with the flashers going down a mountain road, and we're going 50, 60 miles an hour. Like, how did we get here? Support went wrong somewhere. But when they had interests, we invested in them. We spent time doing them with them. And we talked about how you can improve this and how you can create business, and dad's in business, and you can too. And here's what's important. And so they saw us doing it. We did it with them. We were coaching them on how. And so I haven't had to do a lot of coaching past that. They picked it up. They've been doing it. My daughter, who's had our first grandbaby on the way, she saw after she graduated college, she's like, look, this is not going to help me. My degree in natural resources and sustainability isn't going to get me a life where I can have kiddos and work. I'm going to have to be gone. I don't want that. So she just trained herself on graphic design, and she's been a designer ever since. Has her own full book of clients and works her own schedule and makes a living, good living, doing what she was passionate about. So I think doing things with your kids, showing them how, being real with them about the struggles of it, Like, oh, Dad's really going through it right now because something changed in the business world and we're having to adjust and it's painful. Here's why. And when they had, so you're real with them about it, right? You're like, it can be so exciting and it's really hard. And here's what you do when it's really exciting and here's how you deal with it when it's really hard. And so those have been helpful things. And I think the other thing is getting them to attach. Like I'm guilty of this where I'm good at getting direction from the Lord. And then I'm like, okay, cover me. I'm going in. And then my own gifts, I just like, I was like, I got this then. Okay, Lord, you said go, I go. But I think this idea of him like, no, I want to do this with you. That's a real helpful concept too, is like, okay. Because you burn out in your own flesh and your own efforts pretty fast. So
yeah, very much so. It's a, I think there's two reasons I'm asking that question. Is one, I'm sure there's a dad that's listening that's maybe had that same experience that doesn't know quite how to apply that with their kids. They know that they don't want their kids to go through what they did, but they don't know how to really teach their kid other than what they learned. Like they haven't found that new tool in their toolbox. But I think it's more about showing the love for the kid and not, loving on your kid as much as humanly possible. And having them know that doesn't change. That is never going to change. My kids know that no matter what, it's never going to, that does not mean that they don't get upset when they hit a bad shot in golf and I say what happened, that they don't think that, oh, dad hated the fact that no. It's still going to happen. Right. But deep down, they know that daddy loves them beyond measure, and that's what we need to make sure our kids know. And then the reward comes in not the success at something, but in the trying of something, in the chasing of something. That is where your reward comes in. Like, I don't care if you win or lose, success or failure. It does not bother me whatsoever. I actually prefer sometimes that you fail because that means you're trying something beyond your abilities right now. So let's figure out how to make that within your abilities. If that's really what you want to chase, let's go do it. Let's go, let's figure it out. Like, I mean, a 13-year-old doesn't know how to run a business, but guess what? Let's make pure longboards and figure it out. Okay, let's do it.
Why not? Well, I think taking swings, they're young. They're supposed to take a whole bunch of swings and they're supposed to win some and fail some and learn what they do and don't like and who they are and aren't, and who they aren't and what they don't like is as important as what they do. Right. And so, yeah, I grew up poor, me and my mom single, and my bedroom was under the work table in the kitchen. She made a little futon because we had to have a roommate. Right. So my bedroom was under the kitchen table. And so I wasn't going to be poor. So that drove me to do a lot of things I was good at, but didn't fill me with joy, right? I didn't. And so I wanted them to have a little bit further, a step up from me, which was, if God puts stuff in your heart, if you're built with certain design, then do it, go for it, try it. Why not? Take a swing, right? Sometimes being a dad means you work and it's not fulfilling. It's just like, I got to pay the bills.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to do it.
But if you get a shot to do things you're passionate about, take it, go for it. What can happen? What's the worst that can happen? You fail? Okay. Tweak and go again. Right. So yeah, it's, I think you're right. You got to, there's still discipline. They knew if they crossed the line, there was clear boundaries in our house. There was things they'd get disciplined for or like have hard talks about. Didn't mean that there was no discipline. It meant no matter what, even if they failed, they knew that they were safe with us and that they were loved. And so that was a platform that they could really spring from, right? And I was lacking that platform, so I floundered for a long time. And I put effort into things that weren't going to return, or weren't going to be like I couldn't have worked for a sales company with a family, like travel all over the country and work 90 hours a week. That wasn't going to be joy and fulfillment for me, but I learned a ton from it. And so, but taking swings for kids is important, knowing that they've got a backstop. Someone's there to back them up. And walk them through it, help them debrief it. Like, I think debriefing and unpacking things with your kids when they win and when they fail is super helpful because they're like, oh, makes sense now. And if I'm debriefing it with them and I'm not all freaked out, like, oh, I guess I don't have to be freaked out.
I don't need to be freaked out. Yeah. Because again, more things are caught than taught is what I like. like you said, the kids saw you working hard. They saw you doing the right things. And if they see me taking money under the table and doing something shifty, guess what they're going to do? Oh, I mean, I guess that's what we do. We take things under the table and we act shifty. No, like do everything above board, do everything the way it's supposed to be, work your butt off, do the right things. And, you know, sometimes working your butt off doesn't mean growing the business more. Sometimes it means showing up to the games more, right? Like,
yes,
that is sometimes a lot. Like it doesn't mean making more money in your bank account. Like that's not always the work that needs to be done. And that's where the biz side sometimes overshadows the dad side. And really the dad side should be overshadowing the biz side. You know, we need to support our family. We need to be, you know, a man who does not take care of their family is worse than a non-believer, right? So, you know, it's one of those things that we need to make sure that we are caring for our family and we have the money coming in. But dagnabbit, don't neglect anything with your kids. Make sure that they are always aware of how loved and cared for they are. So I love that was a passion. I want to go to the pure longboards a little bit.
It is an easy temptation though, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Oh, for sure. Especially if you have that feeling where you want that scoreboard feeling, right? Like, look at the scoreboard. I'm winning, right? I'm successful. People love me, you know,
which is great. I mean, those strokes are like, I mean, I'm a sales guy, right? So I like the strokes, honestly, naturally, I like the strokes, or what if it's really even more heartfelt than that? I don't want the same poor situation for my kids that I had. Like that's a noble kind of, you know, drive. But if it gets like the angle down here, it's not a very big difference. But as you go, that gap gets wider and then you don't get it back. You can't recover it. And so I just encourage guys, if you're battling with that, the right choice is you do what you need to do to provide and take time with your kids, like take time with them, because there's no substitute for taking time with them and talking through things and being honest with them and being real with them about, you know, what you're going through. And, you know, one of my favorite stories was when our team made a big mistake. We had a very complex client that was in multiple states and new entities popping up all over the place. So we have to set up all the tax and all everything for them. And we made an error. And so we were doing our audits as we do all the time, and we found it. And it was like 40 grand worth of our error. And I was like, oh, crap. Dang it. That's a lot of money. Right. And I was like, but I know the answer. And so I called the owner immediately and I said, hey, buddy, we appreciate you. We love serving you. We made an error. And here's the error. And the good news is the check's on the way. I already cut the check. It's on its way to you. And telling my kids that story, walking them through that story without, you know, save the names to protect the innocent, but that dad does the right thing. If it sucks, but it's the right thing, we're doing it. And I feel like if we take care of people and we do the right thing, we're going to continue to grow our relationships. And it's not always more money, but it's more, I want a good day's work to do and a fair return for it. Right. God give me people that I can serve, a good day's work that I can feel good about, and I can do well from too. And I think he honors that.
Well, I want to go to the pure longboards for a minute and kind of chat about that for a little bit. You know, one of the things that I get asked all the time is, you know, how do I get my kids included in the business? How do I get them, you know, encouraged to do these things? So walk me through, you know, they mentioned wanting a skateboard and you said, okay, I mean, obviously it wasn't the next minute you said, okay, let's build a business, but it turned into a business. How did you kind of take that interest and carve that through the conversation, through the activities that turned this eventually into a business? Can we dive a little deeper into that?
So my middle child, older son, is visionary for sure. He's like, let's go. You know, everybody follows him around and he's gifted that way. So we made these longboards for them, and they were riding with Zeb, who was their youth pastor, and they're, you know, learning, and he's teaching them, and they're growing, and they're like, woo, so fired up. So it was a small community, and everybody in the community knew each other. And we had a whole bunch of kids always at our house. Their buddies were always, because they all lived within 10 blocks, right? They're all close. So it wasn't long before people said, well, could you guys make me one? Or, you know, how could, and so Dunk's like, yeah, sure we can. Yeah, let's, my dad's got a cool set of tools. We can do it.
The answer is always yes. Figure it out later. Yes.
Yeah. And Connor's the guy who's like, actually, I think that's gonna, you know, the younger one. He's like, wait a minute, maybe we need to, before we promise that, let's, you know. And so it started with their friends. Their friends were like, oh, if we paid for the cost, could we work on it together? And it started being this project, and then more kids wanted it. So it just kind of grew organically. And then I was like, you know what, guys, this could be I started the idea. I said, this could be a little company and we could learn some stuff together. What do you think? What would you think about that? And they're like, oh, they were like, yes, let's do it. So that was when we were in Southern Colorado. And so I said, okay, well, we got to learn some things before we launch a business, and we got to make a plan so that we can, kind of work through it and understand where we're going and how we're going to get there. And if there are problems, what do we need to do to fix it? And so we worked on a really basic business plan, and, they're under 30. I think Dunk was 12. So Connor's 11. Connor's an amazing student and very astute that way. So he was like, I got this, Dad. Yep. What do I got to do? So he's busy, and Dunk's like, out there, we could sell to the whole country, and we can, I'm like, all right, easy fella. You guys need to get a good balance for each other, So we worked on a real basic business plan, and it was very simple, very straightforward, something they could understand. And we identified first what margin was, profit. You need to have a company. You need to have something that can generate a profit. And so how can we do that? What's it cost to get the lumber and on and on. So we worked through all that. And then I could see the wheels turning. They were like, ooh, this is cool. And I think as much as anything, honestly, I was spending time with them on something that was a passion of theirs. And so they were like, oh yeah, we're in, let's do this. So it was just rough for a long time and basic for a couple of years. And then they were researching how to market their products. So I gave them assignments, like look online, like you got to figure out how to get the word out about your product. And so they came up with these events that they saw happening around the country. And we put on our first skate event in Trinidad, which is where this all started, Colorado. And it was a skate jam. And the skate jam had about 80 people come from around the country to do longboarding, skateboarding competitions. And we got permission from the city to, block off this road and hay bale the corners and do all this stuff. So all that was education for them. And it comes kind of naturally to me. I've been an entrepreneur for a lot of my life. So I was just kind of working through the building blocks of that with them. And I was always ready. Like, we can pull the plug. If they lose interest, we can stop. Even what we've done to now is good. I wasn't, so bent on this succeeding. I was excited about the experience for them and learning and teaching them the parts and helping them understand how to go from an idea to a plan to executing on that plan, et cetera. So we had that first event, and it was a huge success. We got all kinds of publicity online and all kinds of fun things, and they were kind of launched as a brand. So then I was in the wholesale business. I was a VP of sales for a manufacturing company selling to retailers. So I knew about all that stuff. So I was just bringing them in little by little. And then we went to a couple stores in the Springs and Pueblo, and they said yes and bought some boards. We're like, okay, we better figure out how to make them now. So it just kind of grew like that. And, having a dad who has a background in it, super helpful, of course. But I think if you just ask your kids what they're passionate about and you spend some time with them on it, they're going to love that, whatever it is. They're going to be like, eat it up. Like, oh, time with Dad. Yeah. That's great.
I love that be excited about the experience. I think that all too often, especially entrepreneurs, we're excited about the outcome. And the outcome oftentimes doesn't matter. It should be the experience that matters more, especially when you're dealing with your kids and the growth, because especially a young teenage boy is going to be distracted by 75,000 other things in most cases. So did the experience you guys got to have work out well before they lost interest? Like your kids, it seems like, were interested for multiple years in this project.
The genesis of it is still going, not the company, not making and selling boards, but their passion for skateboarding has continued. And so we came to Fort Collins. We moved to Fort Collins about 15 years ago, and they entered the young entrepreneurs tournament for our region and won with their business plan for pure longboards, and got a $10,000 check and ran and sold to shops all over the state for a while and really built the brand, but then realized what they really loved about skateboarding was their interaction with kids who were on the fringe. their ability to build friendships with people who wouldn't come to church, wouldn't be, and so now they run Camp Good Buddy. And Camp Good Buddy is a full-blown skateboard camp, happens every summer. They just opened in California as well. So they've got a skate and surf ministry in California on a property there where they can run camps in spring break and winter. And then summer camps are here in Fort Collins. And it's a week for kids that come. These skate churches, these groups of skaters come from all over the country, probably 150 to 200 skaters a season come, groups of 50 each week, and they run 3 to 4 weeks of camp. And it's really grown. And this is my middle son's profession. This is what he does full time. So he's taken it and parlayed it into what he wants to do for his life. So I didn't put the pressure on him for that. I just kept encouraging him when he got knocked down. I kept, think about it this way. What about this perspective? How would you, just being a good coach, being a listening ear, and sometimes not saying anything, sometimes letting him figure it out. But he's going to make a good living this year and doing something that he is super passionate about. His brother runs the admin side of it and participates in camp still. And he's got another gig too, full-time gig, but he's married and bought a house already. And he's, bought a house when he was 24 years old, didn't need my help. So he's got a, family to support. So he's working full-time too, but it's been successful. I think the difference was I wasn't concerned about it winning. I was concerned about them learning, and I was concerned about having interaction with them about something I could bring. I knew it. I know how to do it. So how can I share that with you, and how can you learn from it and then take it where you want to? And if I was bent on the success of it, and there was a couple times I got tempted when I saw them get some big orders and like, ooh, you could really make the skateboard company your thing, like it could be. Then I got tempted to like, oh, let's ratchet down and really go. And my wife was really good to say, hey, time out, buddy. This is not your career. This is about relationship with your sons. I was like, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And so then okay, I'm not going to press. And then they would figure it out. So I didn't do it for them. I did it with them, and still doing it with them. And it's been exciting. It's fun.
Yeah. You just, spoke right to my heart there a minute ago. Cause I, really look at the things and go, okay, how can we ratchet it down? How can we grow this? How can we build this? And I should say your wife spoke to me just as much as she just spoke to you. It's like, hey, this is about the relationship with your sons. Right. And that's, I took a big note of that with a big asterisk next to it. Cause that's that it is hard, especially for an entrepreneurial minded person to not want to figure out how to grow this thing. Right. How can we grow this thing? How can we build this thing? How can we turn this into something bigger? And it's like, no. The something bigger this needs to be with my kids is the relationship side of the house. That's what we're growing right now. We're not growing the bottom line. We're growing the relationship. They're learning about the bottom line in the process.
Now here's a real interesting twist to that. I don't want to teach them bad business either.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I want to teach them good concepts, but I don't want to be ratcheted down on the result. That's the difference, right? I don't have to own the result because then I'm doing it for them, or I'm forcing them to do it my way or something. If I can say, look, here's the way, like margin, you got to make sure you're doing something that has margin enough for you to succeed. Otherwise, what are we doing here? We can't, right? On the other hand, I'm not going to be, if I don't have to, I'm not defined by my son's success or not. That's not his definition either. So how can we have, I want to teach you good concepts, but I'm not going to be locked on the result. And that's, for me, that changed my career too. That's a big, big, big thing. So if I said nothing else today besides I'm his kid, the other thing I would say is that I work hard. I give him the things he gives me to do. I want to do with my whole heart, but the results are always his. He gets the results. I get to do what he asks. I get to do the things he puts in front of me and do them with a full heart. And if it turns into a great, wonderful success, fantastic. And if it's a failure and I get to learn from that and he's there with me in it and he's got stuff for me, okay. But he gets the result. And as a sales guy, that's a hard one. But big takeaway, big part of my life is I work hard. He gets the results, whatever they are. He's in charge because he's my source anyway. Come on, let's be real.
So I want to rewind back again to something you said at the beginning where your parents were running away from the church. And then you mentioned in your early 20s, you going back to the church. So what, just for my own personal thing, the denomination side of the house, like what were they running from? What part of church were they running from? What denomination were they?
So they were both in the Methodist church, but it wasn't the denomination. It was a buttoned up life. It was, you go to church, you dress a certain way, and my dad was a creative person. And so he didn't fit that mold. My grandfather on his side was an engineer, and they were just very different people. My dad was a surfer when he was young, and he was a creative guy. He wanted to do art and didn't know it for a little while. Then as soon as he found it, he was like, oh, I found my people in my place, and that's where we're going. And I think he didn't ever have a real relationship with God either. It was just cultural for him as a kid. So he was running away from the culture, and he never met the person of Jesus. So I don't think the denomination was it. I think he didn't have a genuine relationship with God. He had a set of rules, and my mom was the same. However, it was my mom who, my grandfather on my mom's side was a lovely man, loved Jesus, big sweet. I've got big hands. He had big hands. He'd just crush your hands while he's praying for you at dinner. He just like, grandpa, he just, and he'd cry while he's praying and loved the Lord. And so my mom had walked away, but finally when they were separated and I was, 9 years old, he's like, look, you made your choice. I respect it. You're an adult. You can do your own thing. It makes me sad, but I accept it. However, your son has not had a choice. So take him to church and let him choose. And if he chooses not, okay, fair enough. So she did. She's like, oh, I know what to do. She's a hippie. Like she's wearing batik and tie-dye clothing, and she's like an artist and very, funky. And she takes me, and my hair is as far down my back as I can reach, like long, straight blonde hair. I'm a hippie kid. And so she takes me to the Southern Baptist Church. She's like, I know where to take him. Yeah, I'll go there. And the guy with horn-rimmed glasses and his wife's hair is a big, huge beehive, and they're highly conservative. And we roll up in there and they're like, who are these people? But they loved us. Oh my gosh. They loved us. They fed us. They took us on as a family. They loved us. And so she got saved, I think for the first time, actually, about 3 or 4 months in. And it wasn't 6 more months after that I'm like, okay, I want God in my life too. And so we got in the Southern Baptist, most unlikely place, Southern Baptist Church. And then she found the Jesus People kind of movement in the park, and that was more our flavor. But we'd already met the Lord. And so yeah, that was the kind of how we got to where we were. And then when I got to be a senior in high school, I think God started trying to bring up the pain of my dad, and I was not equipped. I was like, no, I'm not going there. That's too painful. And so I just made a little shift and then a bigger shift. And eventually for about 5 years of college, I was away before I came back to the Lord.
I want to challenge one thing, not necessarily challenge, but you said it wasn't about the denomination, but I would say that oftentimes it is, and it sounds like it may have been here, right? Because they were in a spot where it was all rules based and you needed to do these certain things. And that oftentimes comes from the denomination, not from the Bible, right? So
agreed. Well, there's lots of denominations that fall into that role, not just one. That's my point.
That's one of the reasons I was asking. There's tons of them that do. It's just for my own personal edification to kind of understand where they were coming from. And then when I hear Utah and running away from the church, I typically hear LDS Mormon type that running away from. So I was curious on that front too. But
no, my dad was a hippie, pot smoking hippie with 3-day pot parties every weekend, living a block from the Mormon ward house. So we were not LDS. He was actually, the missionaries would come, the LDS missionaries would come all the time. And finally, he was nice to him forever. And finally, he just stood out there with the garden hose, and just sprayed him down. My dad was a mess. Poor guys. They
were just knocking on doors, trying to be positive people,
Well, there was a big target on my dad's house. They're like, you can get that guy, So anyway,
you're definitely one of the select if you can get that guy.
Yeah. No. So my dad was running away from, I think you're right. Part of that denomination and many others is a set of performance-based acceptance for God. You're going to be, if you can earn your salvation by walking away from your old life and doing enough good things and being a part of the church and doing what we say is correct, then you can have a good relationship with him. I just think it's bogus. I think he came for us wherever we're at, and knowing that we were broken and that the planet's broken and that we were going to need his help, and we can come to him just like we are. And he loves us just like that. And then we grow as a result of being in relationship with him, not minding all the rules, but by pursuing him and getting to know him. And his ways work, actually. It's like, hey, don't sleep around with a whole bunch of people. Why is that bad? Well, it's bad on you. It's don't touch the hot stove either. It's going to burn you, right? So there are things that are like good guidelines for us, but those are not the thing that bring us love from him. The thing that brings us love from him is he's our Heavenly Father. He died for us. He's crazy about us. He looks at us doing good things that he built us for. He's like, oh, that's my boy right there. That's my guy. God built him like that, So I think we just have the cart before the horse, or the things flipped around a little bit.
That's one of the things that I struggle with a lot with. I mean, I don't necessarily struggle with it. It drives me crazy that so many churches, I don't care what the denomination is, you could find one Baptist church that's like what you just talked about, that brings you in, and then another one that's such an angry Baptist church that everything is hellfire and brimstone, and that you're the worst person in the world because your wife came to church with a dress that was above her knees, and it's like, oh, good gracious, like what in the world are we doing? You guys are missing the entire purpose of what we're here for, and that was one thing that my wife and I chatted about multiple times, and I've chatted other conversations, and people are like, well, why don't you wear a suit to church? And I'm like, I have no issues with people wearing a suit to church, but you guys are the ones who care whether or not I wear a suit. God does not care whether I wear a suit to church or not, right? Like, it does not matter to him. Like, he cares that I'm at church. He does not care that I wore a suit to church. Well, yeah, but shouldn't you be wearing your best? Like, I'm wearing my best for you guys. Like, that's like, what in the world? Like, again, you guys are missing the point here. Like, my wife understood, right? But you guys are missing the point. And there's still some folks that are just like, well, I just think we should. And I said, and I don't take that from you at all. If that's a conviction on your heart, then that's what you should be doing. Like, that's not the conviction on my heart. That's not, it's the same thing with, I don't mind having a glass of whiskey at the end of the day. If the conviction on your heart is that you can't do that, then that's fine. Don't. And I won't do it next to you. That's fine. Like, we don't have to, like, this is a very open-handed issue. This isn't something that's closed-handed that keeps you out of the church. Like, so. And
it's proof to me that God loves me, quite frankly. Thank you so much. There's some guys in Kentucky who have a very good skill that I appreciate.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm also, we're both guys. I'm a moderate guy. I'm not going to do anything that's going to keep me from living well with my wife or my family, or performing in my job duties or in my community. I don't need to. I've got lots of joy, but having a glass of wine or a beer or whiskey occasionally, enjoying that with my wife or my friends is totally fine. I think it's proof, like that. Like I said, that God loves me. He wants me to be happy. It's like the old friars, and they used to brew. They were the best beer brewers. Back in the day. I'm like, maybe I should have been a friar.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe. No, I think you're doing all right where you're at. That's okay. Yes.
Better here. I like having a family.
So now that your kids are out of the house, you got a grandkid getting ready to come on the way. Like, what is business life and conversations with your kids about business and how they're growing? What does that look like now?
Different and the same. Connor worked with us in our business in Vida for about 4 years right after COVID. And he came to me one day and said, Dad, I got to be honest with you. I love you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I've learned a ton. I got to put him in front of CEOs to do big presentations. And he had a lot of experience that was, that moved him forward. But he said, it's not my passion. Insurance, I know that shocks you, Dad, but insurance, it doesn't wake me up in the morning. I was like, I get it. And so I said, so what is your passion now? What do you feel led to do? And he's like, I want to teach kids. I want to be involved in bringing up the next generation in my daily work. Like, I'll do it in my life, but I want to do it in my daily work too. And I'm gifted for it. He took a bunch of personality and temperament gifting tests and some proficiency things, and it all pointed the same direction. He's like, I want to do that. I'm like, God bless you, son. I'll miss you like crazy. You did a lot of good things here, but you got to go do it. And so he did. So it's a lot about, what are the most important things in your life, son or daughter? And how does what you're doing now in business, how's it line up? How's it make sense with your story and your gifting? and what opportunities are out there for you, right? How does it line up? And so for Connor, that made sense. I was like, oh yeah, I totally get it. I get it. Makes sense. With how you're built and with what need there is, and is there a market for that? Yeah, it makes sense. And I think God creates us with intention. And I think our experiences are on purpose. And not that he hyper micromanages every single one of them. But I think in a big sense, he's like, he makes sense of our lives and when we're following him. And so it's a lot around that. It's like, what are your gifts? What do you really excel at? What do you feel fueled by and fed by? And is there opportunity to do that where you are? Or are there other opportunities that would suit that better? What's the market like? It's big picture evaluation is what it is. I'm no longer the parent directing them. I'm just a coach. If they want my opinion. Sometimes my older son said to me, hey, Dad, because we've always been in business together, you've always been a coach to me. You've always guided me. He's like, I think we've lost some of our friendship. And I was like, oh, no. So he was like, could we just be friends for a while? And I think I got to figure some of this out. I was like, oh, yes, 100%. Yes. Can we go surf tomorrow? Or can we go on a trip? Let's do that. That's an invitation I will not say no to. So with him, I'm talking less about business now because he's like, I got to go do it on my own. I got to know that I can do it. I got to be able to. And I was like, go son, you got it. You got it. And you have my blessing 100%. Rock and roll. And you know what? Actually, he knows things about what he's doing that I don't have any clue about. Like he was in Young Life staff and he's done all this stuff where he's built his education. So my flavor of it is a business flavor and his is like, yeah, but you're forgetting all these parts. So I'm like, you go do your thing, man. So it's less now as they're approaching 30. It's more be around them. And when they ask questions, I'm happy to discuss it. Right. But it's more big picture and it's more when I'm asked.
Obviously, I think one thing that stood out to me is both of them came up to you, both your sons came up to you and gave you a piece of what could have been had you had the wrong, I don't want to say wrong, but had you been focused on it a little bit differently, could have been very painful messages to receive. Hey, Dad, I don't want to work in this company with you anymore. And hey, Dad, like we've lost some of our friendship. But I think that says two things. Is one, you seem to have been super receptive to both of those. And the second thing is they both felt comfortable to come and tell you about that. And obviously that didn't happen over one cup of coffee last week that they were able to do that this week. So kind of walk me through what the stages that we kind of already have a decent idea with some of the story you've told, but how did you make sure that your kids all the way up until adulthood were super comfortable talking to you about things that may be difficult?
Their mom was the founder of it. She's brilliant. I've mentioned this several times, probably several more before we finish, but she always, like our house, I made this big 8-foot, 4-foot wide trestle table and benches down each side. And so the kids from the neighborhood were always at our house, right? We always fed them after school, always had treats and goodies and snacks, and our house was the open house. And she would just ask everybody questions and listen and then give them feedback. Like she was paying attention and what they had to say meant something. This is when they're like 6, 8 years old. So she started that early and I picked up on it real quick. I was like, whoa, that's way different than my family ever did it. I like it. Yeah, and so I'm like, wow, thank you, Lord, for giving me her. And I'm glad to have open eyes enough to see. So we would just talk to them like they were people from the time they were little. Like, how does that make you feel? What do you think about that? That's interesting. Like not always correct them and guide them, but just ask questions and listen. And so we set that when they were young and we just kept doing it all the way through their adulthood. And sometimes we would correct, and redirect and like, hey, I understand how you feel. What about this as a perspective? This might be, would you consider that? There's plenty of that's wrong, that's right. You can't do that, right? You can't. my sons, they were great brothers, but when they fought, they didn't like swing and do that kind of thing. They would just poke the other one in the eye or kick each other in the crotch, right? Like just go for the home run right now. I'd be like, no, you cannot do that. Right. So there was correction for sure. But most of the time it was a conversation and I'm willing to, and I've learned, it was hilarious to listen to what they actually thought about some things. So it was enjoyable, but it was her start and we just kept it going. So then Connor was sweating bullets when he came to talk to me about leaving the company. He's like, I know my dad loves this and he loves having me here. So he was nervous in that conversation, but he knew that I would receive it. Right. So because we'd done that their whole lives, it was easy to do now. I think start now. If you're a dad and you don't have that, start now. And the way you do that is you ask a question and you actually listen. Take time to listen. And then you can give them feedback on what you heard them say. Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is you feel this way. And they're like, no, not that. More this. Oh, okay. Got you. Thank you. That's helpful. Right. So do what you do with client. Like I give that respect to my clients. I should be able to give that respect. And my wife, I should be able to give that to my kids. And so they know what I think. I'm clear. I don't change my beliefs. I'm very clear, but I'm also happy to hear from them and always have been. And that's my wife's smarts and my grace of humility to be able to take it in.
Very good. Yeah. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but I think that it's super important. And I don't think we ever do it perfect. Even if we know that that's what we're supposed to do, we're still going to fail miserably at it from time to time and shut our kids down and make them not want to come to us, or something is going to happen in there. But
I just told you how I'd done it. I had gotten through business with my son for a long time, and I was directing him on how to succeed. And I was excited about that and happy to help him. And of course, want your kid to succeed. So I blew it for probably 2 or 3 years there. And he was gracious enough to say, hey, time out. And so when he did that, I was like, so that's the other thing is pay attention. I get so busy sometimes that I can blow by things. And so thankfully I had a couple of moments to rub together there where I could be like, I need to listen to this. What's going on?
So I am personally a firm believer, and some people may call me crazy, especially in 2025, but the family unit is one of the most important things we can possibly have in the world, right? I think it's the structure of what we are as humans is husband, wife, kids, right? And I tell people all the time that my priorities are my God, my wife, and then my kids, right? And they know that. When the kids, like if it wasn't for my God, I want to have my wife. If it wasn't for my wife, I want to have my kids. So I kind of have to keep them in that order. And if I screw any of the ones up above, then the ones below really suffer. So how did you kind of keep your relationship strong? You've been married for 31 years. You've gone through a lot of ups and downs, I'm sure, in those 31 years and 3 kids and working in different companies and different businesses, and she's doing stuff. Like, how have you guys kept your relationship strong? And when you found rocky moments, how did you kind of get out of those rocky moments, identify them, and then recover to the point where you're not one of the statistics?
Casualties, yeah. Like my parents, right? And half the country. Yeah, great question. God's grace is the big answer. Like help. we got help. We needed help. I would say that including my wife in big decisions and being willing to redirect if she's not there. So we watched a ministry couple when we were in Youth with a Mission young, and he had been blazing forward in the word of the Lord. God told me you'll obey me. And they blew up. I mean, their marriage disintegrated and carnage all over the place as a result. I was like, note to self, never want to be there. So far out ahead of my wife that she doesn't want to be with me anymore, right? And I'm an entrepreneurial, visionary kind of guy, and I could have easily gone down that road. So that painful lesson of watching friends blow up, I thought, okay, God is the one giving direction. He's big enough to give it to me and her, and she'll defer to me if she doesn't have clarity. But we're not moving until she either says, "Yes, God told me the same thing," or "I have peace about that," or "I'm going to defer to you. I think God's given you a strong thing about this, and okay, I'm with you." So until we're together, we're not doing it. And that's big. So God's been good to do that. We haven't made any major decision without that. And so I wouldn't change that. That has saved us a lot of pain, and a lot to recover from, right? I think we're both very willing to be humble and apologize when we have missed or hurt each other. And we're both strong personalities. Oh my gosh. Obviously my wife leads a huge nonprofit and was a leader in ministry for lots of years before that. And she's a strong lady. And so we've also given each other kind of clear, like, God gave you that to oversee and me that to oversee. And if it's in your lane, I'm going to defer to you, right? You got kids to say hello to, please do.
Yeah,
Don't
I got
worry.
a little man coming in here. What's up,
Awesome.
dude? Of course you can have a banana, even in the garage. Yeah, definitely put the peel in the trash. Can you shut the door? Thanks, bud. The garage is not usually where they're allowed to eat that because we've got like the golf simulator in there, which half golf simulator, half movie theater. So it's like usually I don't allow that, but go for it, bud.
I'm noticing a theme about golf here.
Yes. The family, we are a family of golfers. Yes.
So anyway, I think those are pretty helpful things. I think we had some rocky roads for sure when we were pioneering a ton of things. We at one time I was the VP of sales for a manufacturing company. We were pioneering a landscaping company in our little town because there wasn't one, and we'd been given an opportunity if we created one. We were renovating our home that we were living in, and I was traveling for my VP of sales job a ton. That was not our brightest moment, and it was tough. Little tiny kids, and it was too much. I overspent us, and so we got to a place where I just had to decide: are we going to continue, or are we going to shut some stuff down so that we don't divorce, so we can find each other again? And so we sold the landscaping company, and I was like, this isn't my passion anyway. It just plopped in our lap, and so I said, yes. That doesn't mean you should. Just because you can. This is my wife and I finally have said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So we sold that company and went back to just the primary role. We hired some people to help finish the house. I just had to do some practical things to like make space for us to find each other because we were, I was spending too much. And I realized she had a capacity and I got to choose what I was spending it on. So did I want intimacy and time with my wife and family, or did I want her to, partner with me in all these projects? And I was like, wait a minute. No, I want my wife back. So, but I think that was God's grace, moment of clarity, like, hey, dude, knucklehead.
I mean, I think that having the ability to be able to step aside and realize it is something that some people don't have. So taking that time, sit back, like what is actually happening? Are we on the right track here? Are we doing the right things? Doing some check-ins. Did you guys have anything like it's March as we're recording this and I still haven't done it yet, but at the beginning of the year, we started doing like annual planning. What are we doing this year? Where do we want to be? What do we see this year looking like? Just to check in about who we are and where we're at and what the family's doing. Is that something that you guys did together as far as like, not necessarily business wise, but family wise? Like, where are we at? What are we doing? Anything like that?
Not until after that. Like that was the weeds for us. That was like everything flying. I was still kind of coming into my identity in Jesus as a son, not a producer. I was going to be somebody for the kingdom. So I was still driving pretty hard and kind of starting to come down from that. And we had little kids and a house that we just bought our first home, and I can do a lot of stuff. So we did, so we didn't do that during that time. It would have helped a whole bunch. If we were meeting regularly to say, hey, what are our values? Who do we want to be as a family? And what was most important? And then vet things by that, right? Like we weren't doing that then. About 5 years after that, we started having kind of regular touch base marriage meetings, and super helpful and prevented us from really going down that same road. Actually, there was one more time that we really had to find a new gear and really get it for a little bit. But we knew it. And going into it, we were like, okay, this is going to be 18 months. It's going to be tough. And we're going to be distant from each other. We're going to have to work our tails off to get through this and make it out the other side. But knowing that going in and then touching base a couple times through it is like, still got each other. We're not going anywhere. We're, we're going to make it through this together, and we're working our plan. Our plan's coming to an end, and we're going to be good. So even if it was tough, having those kind of times really makes a huge difference. Highly encourage it. But we didn't, that's kind of a newer concept, like marriage business meetings in a way, or like check-ins. It seems like that's newer teaching in the church, newer information. And so it didn't happen for about 5 or 6 years after that. But like I said, God's grace and the ability to humble ourselves and be like, yeah, you're right. I'm blowing it. I'm sorry. But, do I want to have an intimate relationship with my wife where we get date night and that kind of thing? Now we have date night. Now we have time away with each other. Now we have in empty nesting, we're having a blast. We're having so much fun.
But how many relationships, once the empty nest happens, they fall apart because they did not have those conversations beforehand where they actually know each other and they still wanted to be in relationship with each other. So then when the house is gone, the only thing that was keeping them together was the kids. Like there's that saying, "Oh, stay together for the kids." And I think that it happens the other direction as well. Is the kids kept them together, not because they were staying together for the kids, but they didn't have anything other than the kids keep them together. And they didn't realize it till later. They hadn't gone on a date with each other. They didn't know how to even talk to each other anymore. Like the person that they were 30 years ago before the kids left is not the same person as it is now. And they forgot that process in the middle of staying in touch with each other and having communications and, and that's where I think.
Chase her down, man. Go after her. Like
always,
she's worth going after. Chase. I mean, you don't have the relationship you want. Well, do something about it. Like date her, like woo her, like enough to know what her love language is and what she enjoys. And so I like adventure, right? I like surfing and scuba diving, and I like things that take us to parts of the planet. And she likes traveling for seeing the sights and architecture and food and different things than I do. And so finally we just decided, okay, we're going to alternate. Going to places where you surf isn't bad either. It's like the beach. That's okay.
Yeah. There's worse places to visit.
There's worse places to go. So it's not like she's suffering, but we need to do both of those. So we just alternate now. Like, okay, when we get to go on vacation, it's your turn. We're going to go. So we just went to Istanbul and went to India to see the work that she does first and had a great time there. And then went to Istanbul for fun. And it was awesome. And I had a great time watching her like light up. I was like, oh, that's my girl. That's my wife. And then next year we're going to go on an adventure trip. And so we're intentionally feeding the other one, right? Like if I love her and I want intimate relationship with her, I'm going to do things that build her up and fuel who she is. And she's going to do the same. And so before I was fighting for my own right to have my adventure, I work hard and, I want to get that stuff keeps me able to go. And then finally I was like, wait a minute, we're both going to help each other be our best self. We're both going to help each other grow and win. And that's what our love is built on that's what we do. And so it's not that hard. Like sometimes guys, I'm not a romantic or I don't know, like bull crap. It's not that hard. You know who she is. Do stuff she likes.
And even if you're not a romantic, like, do you love your wife?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So do you like seeing her happy?
Yeah.
Do you like moments that she does when she is very happy? Right? Do you enjoy those moments? Yeah. So what are the results of having? Okay. So can you be romantic for a minute because you enjoy the result afterward? Like, go ahead and be romantic. It's okay. Like, you can find the motivating part for you. Don't worry about it. Like
guys are simpler. It's just real simple.
Yeah. In most cases, yes. It's
but
like
invest. You do this in everything else. If you want a certain result, invest in it. Spend time at it, like learn it. It's, and so
Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot with like when he did like therapy and whatnot, and he would do it with couples as well. And they're like, well, we don't even know how to date because he's like, you guys are going to go on a date. And they're like, well, we don't know how to date. He's well, no kidding. You don't. That's why you're not doing it now. Like it's going to be so uncomfortable for you at first. You're not going to have a clue how to do it. You guys are going to hate it. People at the restaurant are probably going to look at you and be like, what in the world are you two doing dating? But guess what? The next time it'll be a little easier, and then it'll be a little easier. It's only difficult because you haven't done it in so long. So go do it and you'll get better at it, and you'll remember what that other person loves and what you can do to please them, and you're gonna enjoy it eventually. So get back to it again. Like don't I don't want it to get to be the point where I'm so rusty at being able to date my wife that it's uncomfortable going on a date with her. Like we're at the wrong part. We've got 3 kids, 10 and under, and it's like, okay, it is a little bit more difficult to go on dates, but guess what? We still try to find the time to do it. At least once a month, we're going to go do it. I'll do it in the middle of go to a lunch date. I don't care what kind of date it is. Just me to be able to see my wife, just her and I sit down, have a conversation, hold her hand while we're eating lunch. Like, what a deal.
The other thing that's kind of fun is to find things that you both like doing and start doing them before the kids leave. Like when they're older, you get more time, a bit more. You're not so responsible for every detail. And so finding things that you enjoy and start doing them before they leave, and also finding friends that you can continue friendship with after the kids are gone. Like, okay, we're starting to spend more time developing who we're going to be together after they go. And so it's like, before it happens, we're doing some practical things that make a big difference. So we have friends that we enjoy going out with and having a fun time. And that, when we were coming out of little kids, that helped us start to date in a group. And we're like, oh, this is cool. This was fun. We had a good time. And I learned things about my wife while it's happening, and she learns things about me. And, so those, finding friends and finding activities that we both like or that we can do after they're gone, that was super helpful. And that was my wife. She was like, let's do that before they're gone. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So, so encourage people toward that stuff too. It sounds real basic, but it's helpful.
It was just, as you were saying that, it made me think of the book Built to Sell. Right. Like if you're building a company with the end in mind, like we're going to sell this thing. So how do we prepare this for when it sells, and then it was like, built to, be empty nesters. How do we build our relationship to where, we are still staying super strong and prepared to be empty nesters and ready to go when when these kids up and leave, and that makes a lot of sense. And the only way to do that is to keep your relationship thriving and going and have that communication. And, I can't tell people how often, if I could punch people in the face with the word communication, I would, but communicate with your spouse. Goodness gracious. It's unbelievably important.
Communicate and listen. How about that?
Oh, the heck with that. No, we don't need to do that. Just communicate. No, listen is not necessary. That's not a part of this at all. Don't even, geez, we had to throw that in there. But
I'm not saying it because I'm good at it. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm like, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Remember.
Yeah. We need the constant reminder. Exactly. But Tyler, it was awesome to get to know you a little bit and chat a little bit more. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss while we were on here? Anything that popped up in your brain that you're like, hey, we should totally chat about this too?
It is business. Business is part of the topic, right? We've talked a lot about being a dad, being a husband, and being a son of Jesus. And those are all the core, most important parts. But in business, I think the biggest shift for me has been to champion my people and to trust them to do the work. Give clear expectation and trust them to do the work, and then support them in doing the work. I used to be the solution for them. I would be the one to actually get it done if they faltered or whatever. And I really stunted our company for a long time. Like we could have been much further along now had I not tried to be the solution myself. But had I trusted the people God brought me, invest in them, give them clear expectations, of course, work my tail off myself, but give them a place where they can succeed and bring value. And man, people have risen to that. They have like, oh, this guy believes in me. Actually, he's not saving the day. He's actually giving me an opportunity to grow and improve and be something myself. And so that shift in business made a colossal change in our team. And now if I'm not there to talk about built to sell or building something that has life of its own, that has kingdom value, that's ongoing, right? That isn't just based on your participation. If you build something that falls apart the second you leave it, we didn't leave much legacy or anything else. And so talk about a shift in building something of value, man, that's been the biggest shift for me. And that's also helped me with my kids, right? Not doing it for them either, but being a support to them and encouragement to them. That's the only thing we didn't talk about that I think would be valuable. So be a son of Jesus, commit to your family first before your business, and then in your business, work your tail off and help other people succeed around you. And the water level will rise and your company will grow and you'll have something very valuable. Whether you keep it forever or whether you sell it, it'll be something that you'll be proud to be a part of. And I have a ton of friends who've worked for us now, a ton of people I care deeply about because they're like, we just had our awards deal and I had no less than 5 people come up to me in a company of 25 and say, I'm never working anywhere else. Just want you to know. As long as I'm working here. I'm like,
and I would love to foot stomp what you talked about on the people side of the house. And like, if you're pouring into your people and you're helping them grow and you're not how can you ever go on a vacation if you're the only one that can solve a problem, right? Like grow people who can solve problems, and give them the authority and power to solve them. Like, if you hired them for a reason, then let them show you that reason and go and help, let them solve the problems, let them figure it out, let them grow. You're probably going to grow the company a lot faster if you're not the only one trying to solve the problems here.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It'll be much more fun too. Like it's way more fun. It's like, look at this thing. These guys are crushing it. Go. freaking go. Yes.
I love solving problems. Don't get me wrong, but I want you to bring me the biggest, hardest, hairiest problem you have, because you're really at a point where the two of you guys, you figured all these other problems out and you just can't get this one. All right. Like, let's sit down and figure it out. But man, oh man, I love that addition. So I really appreciate that you added that. Well, first off, congrats on the first grandkid on the way. I'm terribly sorry that your daughter's going through that morning sickness stuff, though, so that's dreadful. But congrats to the first grandchild coming. It's really exciting. I know my oldest is only 10, but my wife is already looking forward to grandkids. So we're hot on your heels. We'll see. But thank you so very much, Tyler, for jumping on. I mean, there's probably 7,000 other things that we'd love to talk about. So maybe if we can get you on here for 2.0 sometime in the future and have some more conversations. But I really appreciate you jumping on. Everybody, if people wanted to reach out and ask you questions or learn more about your HR company with Vida, tell me the best way for folks to reach out to you.
VidaHR.com. And that's super simple. VidaHR.com. Give us a shout. We'll be happy to. And by the way, we're a resource to people who, even if they're not our client, we're happy to help and nudge people in the right direction on stuff. So if we can be helping in any way, we're happy to. But reach out to us. We'll be happy to chat with you.
Very good. All right. VidaHR.com. It'll be in the show notes. Thank you again, Tyler. Thank you for everybody who's listening. Please tell us what your favorite part of the podcast was. Tell us what stood out to you. Like, subscribe, put some stuff in the comments. And I look forward to seeing everybody on the next show.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.